Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, joining the National African American Tobacco Prevention Network as we host promising practices for tobacco prevention and control in African American communities. This will be a webinar and live panel discussion. The National African American Tobacco Prevention Network, or NAATPN, we are a national organization dedicated to facilitating the development and implementation of comprehensive and community competent tobacco control programs to benefit communities and people of African descent. NAATPN is one of 6 CDC-funded national networks that engages national and statewide partners by providing technical assistance in tobacco control and prevention activities. The purpose of this meeting today, we are going to discuss and review some outcomes impacting tobacco control and prevention in African American communities. We're going to talk about some promising practices and community competent initiatives that are currently taking place. We're going to look at opportunities for action that could impact African American communities, and we're going to begin a dialogue on how we prioritize these opportunities for action. Let's talk about where we're going to go, because that's a good discussion. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? We're kind of understanding the history, we're understanding the landscape. We understand that we've had major success. We also understand that we've got youth that have been trained, but we know that there needs to be more resources to continue having that youth involvement. But let's talk about where we're going, and let's look at it in terms of marketing and advertising in our communities.
So let me just pick up where my fellow panelists just left off. We've heard a lot of history about menthols, a short, frankly not a sweet history of the tobacco industry addicting the African American community. Let me just say, my main job is a program officer overseeing policy and regulatory sciences and neuroscience at the Tobacco-Related Disease Research Program at the University of California Office of the President. And as Del Monte pointed out, I'm the co-chairperson of the African American Tobacco Control Leadership Council. This is the essence of targeted marketing. If we take everything that the panelists have said, and other panelists would say that in 1953, African Americans only smoked 5% of menthol. White folks at that point smoked 2 to 3%. The industry parlayed that small difference into today 80% of African Americans smoke menthol cigarettes. This is a direct example of targeted marketing. There's no other way to put it. If we had the time, we'd go through each one of those decades and point out the major developments, but the punchline is that's what the outcome has been. Unfortunately, we're all familiar with this, where they take our idiom and what we say and how we do it, fire it up, and turn it into Newport pleasure. Of course, there's a woman with a cigarette. We know that women are susceptible to these type of ads, as Ms. Caffey has just pointed out. And then, of course, one of the things that Reverend Brown did mention that we all were involved in was the Cool Mix campaign in Chicago, where these are actual cartons of cigarettes. Each one of these little things here, these are what the outside brands look like. This again was another special marketing to the African American community. This slide I borrowed from a colleague that used to work here, Latasha Wright. She did this presentation in 2009. I think the punchline is that the industry looks at our community in a different way that it looks at other communities. Our community, the African American community, is considered a focus community. It's a community that is predominantly colored, poor, black, and inner city, while the non-focus communities are usually more upscale, suburban, white, and rural. And those are the distinctions they make. In the focus communities, less expensive and more desirable promotions take place. In the non-focus community, more expensive take place. And frankly, the menthol cigarettes are cheaper in focus communities. What I'm going to do for the next few slides, this is something that the industry said they do. I'm going to show you what research that we have funded that actually shows this to be the case. Unfortunately, this is a nationwide phenomena of greater promotion, cheaper prices, and special promotions. This is a study that the TRDRP, the Tobacco-Related Disease Research Program, funded, Lisa Hendrickson at Stanford, that essentially shows that as the African American student percentage increased, the proportion of menthol ads increased in stores. So they did a statewide survey of the different tobacco outlets, and as the concentration of African Americans were greater, the concentration of menthol ads were greater. They also found from the same studies that in those same places, for every 10% increase in the proportion of African American students, Newport discounts are 1.5 times greater. Newport's a menthol cigarette. The proportion of menthol advertising increased by up nearly 6%. And Newports were promoted 42% higher. And I think the punchline of this, and this will be a punchline throughout, that the cost of Newports is 12 cents less. 12 cents less. This is some unpublished data by my colleague, Pamela Clark. We looked at convenience stores. This is a nationwide sample in 2002. And the punchline here, this is price, and this is medium income. And this is looking at this, that the price of the cigarette pack goes up as the median income goes up. So where you live matters in terms of the cost of cigarettes. Next slide, and I think this is the take-home slide. This again is price, and this is the concentration of African Americans. The greater the concentration of African Americans, the cheaper the price of the cigarette. The greater the concentration of African Americans, the cheaper the price of the cigarette.